Hello and welcome to Norfolk and Suffolk Care Supports in association with ACC Consulting Limited's second part in our Emotional Intelligence Leadership Collection. Part 2 will focus on self-awareness and the video itself is around 14 minutes long.
Hello everybody, I'm Amanda Collinge and today we're going to look at emotional intelligence. We're going to focus on self-awareness as part of developing our emotional intelligence. So this 15-minute video will give you the opportunity to enhance your self-awareness, gain insight, and in doing so, take your emotional intelligence to that next level. So I guess the first question is, what is emotional intelligence? So according to Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence, or EI as it's often known, is the ability to perceive, use, understand, manage, and handle emotions. So people with high emotional intelligence, the research shows that they can recognize their own emotions, they can recognize the emotions of others, and then use that emotional information to guide their thinking and their behavior, and also to discern between different feelings, to be able to label them appropriately, and then importantly, adjust their emotions to adapt to different environments with different people, build relationships, and gain better outcomes. So according to Daniel, he defines EI, or emotional intelligence, as an array of 5 specific skills or competencies that underpin performance and success. So the 5 competencies that he defines are empathy, social skills, self-awareness, self-regulation, and motivation. So we'll just look at those 5 competencies in a little bit more detail. So self-awareness is that knowledge of yourself, valuing yourself, and understanding how you think and how you feel. So today we're going to focus on the competency of self-awareness. And this is about knowing and valuing ourselves, understanding how we think and how we feel. So the first thing I'd like us to think about is, how are we when we're at our best? Because this is part of knowing ourselves. It's part of self-awareness. So I'd like you to reflect and think about, just take a moment out. How are you when you're at your best? Are you calm? Are you confident? Are you measured, in control, flexible, creative, perhaps funny? It can be helpful to be self-aware and know how we are when we're at our best, so that we can perhaps recognize when we've moved away from our best, perhaps when we're having that bad day. So I'd like you to just think for a moment, how are you when you're having that bad day? Maybe it's irritable, maybe feeling tired, perhaps disorganized, maybe your decisions aren't so wise, perhaps you feel physically unwell, perhaps your confidence takes an ebb. So in terms of self-awareness, if we know how we are when we're our best, we will quickly recognize those telltale signs of when we're moving away from our best. And with that knowledge, we can manage ourselves better. So having talked about how we are when we're having a good day and recognizing the difference in how we think, feel, and behave when we're having a bad day, it can be useful to imagine that we have this stress bucket inside us. And the daily stresses, just like the rain, fill up our bucket. And as the bucket fills, we become stressed, we become overloaded, and we recognize those changes in behavior. So for example, we recognize that we become less focused. We recognize that we feel out of control. We recognize that maybe we have physical symptoms, that we feel unwell. So the stress bucket is a really useful way of checking in with yourself. People that are self-aware know their achievements. They're not shy of congratulating themselves on their achievements. So whether it be at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, but certainly at the end of the day, it can be useful to think about, what have I achieved today? And that can be your personal achievements, it can be your professional achievements, it can be your daily achievements, your weekly achievements, yearly achievements, or your lifetime achievements. So just take a few moments out and think about, what is it that you're proud of? What have you achieved, both professionally as well as personally? And by thinking about our achievements, we can develop our confidence. Especially when we're perhaps feeling stressed or going into a difficult conversation or a difficult meeting, we can boost ourselves in terms of recognizing and owning our achievements. Strengths, we tend to think of as things that we're good at. But we're going to look at strengths in a slightly different way. We're going to look at strengths in terms of those attributes about ourselves that energize us, those attributes that other people appreciate as well as us. And when we use those strengths, we give our best. So in terms of self-awareness, I'd like us now to, again, take a few moments out and think about your strengths. Think about those things that energize you. Is it your confidence? Is it your creativity? Is it your communication skills? Is it your problem solving skills? So at this stage, I'm hoping that you've taken some time out to think about your strengths and recognizing that those strengths are valued by us, but valued by others too. But the next question is overdone strengths. Can you have too much of a good thing? Well, somebody called Hogan, he does a lot of work around the light side and the dark side of personality. Hogan suggests that you can have too much of a good thing. Overdone strengths are strengths that when we're under pressure, those strengths stop being appreciated by others. And actually, those overdone strengths can not only upset relationships, they can derail us and our performance. So I'm going to ask us to think about and reflect, and maybe this is a little bit harder, to think about our light side as well as our darker side. So if we think about the light side as our strengths and we think about the dark side as our overdone strengths. So as I talk through each one in turn, maybe think about, can I relate that strength to myself, and under what circumstances, perhaps when the pressure builds up, does that strength become an overdone strength? So if we look at excitable, I think we could agree that that's a nice attribute to have, to be excitable and enthusiastic. But when the pressure ranks up, that enthusiasm can move into the changeable friend, the person that throws their rattles out of the pram, the person that's skeptical. Again, that's a good attribute to have, but overuse it when under pressure, that can be coming across as being the clever cynic, which isn't so much appreciated. To be cautious at work, it can be a useful strength. But again, if we overplay it in times when things need to move on or when there's a decision to be made, you may come across as the safety officer, the rule and the regulator. The person that's leisurely, this is the person that takes on tasks, that are asked of them quite passively. But then perhaps when they're under pressure, that leisurely approach may turn into aggression. So passive aggressor, the resistance fighter. To be bold or to be confident is a great attribute, but that confidence may move into arrogance, the person that's got to have the last word. To be mischievous or charming, that's a nice attribute to have. To be curious, people find it interesting, but overplay it and you may come across as the charming manipulator, and that will be easily spotted, and that will for sure upset relations. To be diligent, very helpful to do things properly and rightly, but when under pressure, when things need to be done within a timeline, you can come across as being the fussy perfectionist that halts up projects and outcomes. So in terms of strengths, know your strengths, but recognize in real time when they move into an overdone strength. We're going to look at helpful and unhelpful thinking patterns now. And this comes from the work of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And it can be really useful to take ownership of our helpful as well as unhelpful thinking patterns. The CBT model works on the basis that our thoughts drive our feelings and how we feel drives behavior. I would say that every one of us has got many very helpful patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior, but every one of us also perhaps has a number of unhelpful thinking, feeling, and behavioral patterns. Patterns that don't serve us well and perhaps don't serve others well too. So it can be helpful to think about, do I have any unhelpful thinking patterns in this situation, which is perhaps upsetting the relationship or upsetting the outcome? Let's illustrate the unhelpful thinking pattern with a team meeting example. So if I have the thoughts that I can't speak out at a team meeting, and my thoughts are that everybody else is more superior, that my words will become muddled, I'll go red and be embarrassed, then my feelings are likely to be feelings of embarrassment, anxiety, and lack of confidence, which in turn feeds the behaviour of keeping quiet at the team meeting, which then reinforces that unhelpful pattern, which is I can't speak out at a team meeting. So what we can do is take ownership for those unhelpful thinking patterns. It's difficult to change our thoughts and feelings, but what we can do, be brave, be courageous if you like, and come up with a behavioural plan of change, which in turn may help us feel more confident and start to change the unhelpful thinking pattern. So my plan for the next meeting will be to give myself a good talking to, give myself permission to speak out at the team meeting, not to be worried about going red, and instead of arriving last at the meeting, I'm going to arrive early so that I can hear my voice. I'm going to prepare some questions, and instead of focusing on my negative thoughts, I'm going to focus on the people around me. So I'm going to listen. So I've got my plan, and already I'm feeling confident that I can talk out at the next meeting. And then when I do speak out, I've now changed that unhelpful thinking pattern. I've challenged the pattern in the past. So the CBT model can be a really useful and helpful model for personal change. So after today, maybe think about, do I have any unhelpful thinking patterns? And what have I got to lose by making those changes? So finally, if you wish, there's a piece of homework for you. And if you follow the link, you'll be able to access the emotional intelligence questionnaire, and you can identify your strengths and development areas against the 5 competencies. Another piece of homework is to reflect upon your achievements, reflect upon your strengths, and take ownership of those, but also not forgetting the overdone strengths. Think about, under what circumstances do my strengths turn into an overdone strength? And then finally, reflecting upon the CBT model, think about any unhelpful thinking patterns that you have. I hope you found the video useful. Thank you.